Hello, it's Linda Ballas here, and today's video is all about effective communication and how, when you understand how to communicate with people, you can actually build your home-based business a lot faster. So when you have some insights in communicating with people, whether you need this into your home-based business or your personal relationships or even just at your work, it helps you to understand how to connect with and understand different people and how they think differently. Most people recognise that meaningful relationships make a world of difference in the quality of life that you might enjoy. However, in spite of the fact that we spend our entire lives interacting with people, sometimes it's very difficult to achieve mastery in relating to other people and understanding them and how they think, especially when they think and react in different ways from what you do yourself. This is because communication with other people is actually an art, and it's an art that very few people ever learn to master. Firstly, you need to understand that there are different communication styles and different personality types. A person's communication style is largely dependent on their personality, but there are other things that can be taken into consideration. For instance, some people are very direct, but they're very feeling people. Other people are direct, but they're thinking people. Or you might have indirect people that are feeling and indirect people that are thinking. People who are direct normally speak quickly and more likely to come out and say what they mean, whereas indirect people tend to speak more slowly and are more likely to communicate ideas through indirect means. And it's not always clear if you don't understand where they're coming from. So feeling people are more emotionally driven in their communication. They tend to be more socially oriented. Their speech patterns are more melodious and embellished. Thinking people tend to speak in more of a monotone and tend to be less socially oriented than feelers. They work better when they're alone and are more task orientated than feeling people are. Neither is right or wrong, they're just different. So in order to be effective in your communications with different personality types, you need to recognise and work with these differences, rather than expecting people to change and to think and react the way you do. So when you're communicating with someone, it's important to first identify the type of communication style that you're dealing with. Listen for the pattern of the person's speech to find out if they're direct, for example, and speaking very quickly, or they're speaking more slowly and more likely to be indirect. Next, listen for the tone of their voice to find out if they're feeling. Their language is more embellished and melodious, or they're thinking. Their language is more monotone and mechanical. Once you've established what communication style the person has that you're talking to, you can adjust your listening and your speaking in order to communicate more effectively with them. For example, when you're speaking with a direct thinking communicator, you need to understand that direct people are big picture thinkers and are less likely to respond to discussions which involve a lot of detail. If they're also thinking and task oriented, they're more likely to be focused coming up with a solution than they are talking about their feelings. They'll most likely prefer to lead the interaction and will respond better to communication which is direct, to the point. When speaking with a direct feeling communicator, you need to understand that this is the person who's less detail oriented and still focused on the bigger picture. Since they are also feeling oriented, they tend to be a bit more chatty and social than the thinking communicators. Direct and feeling oriented people have a tendency to talk a lot, and if they're not interrupted, they can usually just keep on talking until someone stops them. They might also jump around from one topic to another and can be hard to follow if you're an indirect thinking communicator. When speaking with an indirect thinking communicator, you need to understand that this is someone who is very slow-paced and methodical in their communication. Since they're thinking-oriented, they're more likely to be interested in discussing facts and will be more analytical in their conversations. Because they're methodical and they don't like to be interrupted, and if they are, they will normally pick back up where they left off. Speaking with this person will require a lot more patience if you're a direct communicator, and it's more important to focus on being objective rather than discussing feelings. When speaking with an indirect feeling communicator, you need to understand that the indirect feeling communicator is much more diplomatic. They're not likely to respond objectively with solution-based conversations. They'd rather discuss their feelings and have someone listen to them and understand them than get advice. Remember, they are indirect and keep the conversation light and non-threatening, focusing mainly on the feelings behind what they're saying. So, in conclusion, now that you're able to identify the communication style, give yourself some practice and work on understanding them as much as possible. And always remember that the best way to relate to another person is to communicate with him or her from his or her frame of reference and not your own. Doesn't matter if you work a job or if you've got a home-based business or if you're just interested in improving your personal relationships. The better you can understand how different people communicate, the better you'll be able to communicate with them successfully. I hope this has helped you and makes it easy to understand other people's communication patterns when they're very different from your own. And it'll help you build your home-based business much faster if people feel that you're relating to them. So, as always, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you in another video. Thank you.